Most of us, I think, are very aware of the phenomenal success of a book entitled The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. Some 30 million copies of that book have been sold. 30 million copies. I'm not a big fan of the book, actually, but its popularity is telling. Its popularity tells us something about what people are really hungry for these days. It tells us that there's a deep hunger for purpose, for discovering and living out of a purpose to our lives, a sense of purpose to each of our individual lives and all of our lives together. It strikes me that churches do a pretty good job getting the basics in life to people, helping people to get bread on their tables, though we have much more to do to alleviate poverty and hunger in this world. But we do a pretty good job of providing bread to people. But we are finding out what Jesus discovered in that gospel you just heard proclaimed. The story, the continuing story of the multiplication of the loaves and fish. And what we're finding out is that food is only part of what people are really hungry for. And while people need bread to just live, people also need a sense of purpose if they're going to be truly human beings. In Jesus' own words, the human being does not live by bread alone. The problem Jesus ran into in this story is that the people just got caught up in this first level, in the basics, and missed the whole spiritual dimension Jesus was trying to offer to them. Jesus could see the physical need of the crowd. He could hear their stomachs growling, and he could respond by feeding them with bread. But this Jesus could also see beyond the physical needs of the crowd and recognize a deeper hunger of which they had yet to even become aware. The way the scriptures describe it, Jesus said, "You've come looking for me not because you saw God in my actions, but because I fed you, I filled your stomach, and I did it for free. Don't waste your energy striving for perishable food alone. Work for the food that sticks with you, food that nourishes your lasting life, food the truly human one will provide for you. He and what he does are guarantees by God that you will be fed that way." My friends, there is more to life than people's biological needs. What are we doing, you and I? What are we doing as a church to really meet people in their spiritual need? What is the CSC doing to be a source of connecting with this purpose for the students who begin to arrive in just a couple weeks and who are here 4 and 5 and 8 years? Are we doing our job? The generosity of Catholics is beyond question. No faith community in all the world gives more than the Catholic Church gives to the poor, and that's the truth. For that I am very proud and very grateful. But I'm not convinced at all, that we are providing for the other essential ingredient of their human lives. And that is providing meaning and purpose to their lives. Helping people realize how essential to their lives it is to know what they're here for. Connecting them with that meaning and purpose in a way that carries them through some of the hardest days, helps them get up in the morning and continue on when they'd rather not. And the success alone of this book tells me that I don't think we're doing our job. I really don't. But this is not just the church's job. It's each of our jobs. It's each of our jobs to help people know, achieve, experience the purpose and the meaning of their lives over the years of their life. It's just so human that we do that for each other. I quote from Dostoevsky in his novel, The Brothers Karamazov. For the secret of man's being is not only to live, but to have something to live for. Without a stable conception of the object of life, man would not consent to go on living. And he would rather destroy himself than remain on earth, though he had bread in abundance. That is true. That is true. The wealthy who have more than enough bread commit suicide. So do the rest of us. We commit suicide because we've lost our sense of purpose. Enough of a sense of purpose to carry us through the darkest, darkest nights of our days, when we're most sick, even unto death, and when the failures come and everything in between. In that first reading you just heard proclaimed, the people of Israel have lost their sense of purpose in their life. And it took and they felt like giving up. They were on the verge of giving up in this passage. And it took two incredible leaders to help them remember what they were about, remember what they were here for, to help them go through that journey in the desert. That's what leaders do, my friends. And every single one of us is called to lead like that, to help people who get discouraged and lose their way, to remember why they're here, what they're for, the purpose of each of our lives. It's what leaders do. And that's not somebody else's job. To define the sense of purpose is another homily for another day. Suffice it to say for now that while each of us have our own particular purposes in life, our own mission statements, maybe even, if you will, there's also a collective purpose that we all share that carries the rest of those specific, individual, concrete purposes that get us up in the morning. And that collective purpose, very simply, is this. In symbolic language, it's the kingdom of God. It's establishing, doing the best we can to establishing the kingdom of God realized among us, which is to say, to do our best day in and day out to create an order in relationships, in our relationships with each other, throughout the human family, and in our relationship with nature itself, a right order, an order, a relating marked by justice and by peace and by joy. And if we're here today, this morning, I'd suggest to you, we must agree to that, you and I. We must agree. We just must. We are here to improve the world, not simply enjoy it, and to do what we can to help establish that new order to things. Yes, we have to help the poor. We have to help the hungry. We have to take care of human beings. And I would propose to you that the whole conversation right now in our nation about health care is a very specific desire to do just that, though we don't really know how to do it best. But it's a desire, at least, to try to fix that. And while we must help the poor, you and I have also got, in the meantime, to help people get to the depth and the purpose and the meaning of their lives. Because it's what makes us human. It's essential to our human life. It is so nice to go away on vacations. They're incredibly enjoyable. But do you know how nice it is to have something to come home to? To know that you have something to do with your life when you get back home again. That you have a place to worship and a great group of people to worship with. Where Sunday after Sunday we can take bread and bless it and give thanks and break it and share it with the world, because that's what bread is for. And remember again and again and again that that's what we're for too. To be taken and blessed and broken and given for others' sake. And I know you know what I mean when I say this. When I feel the purpose of my life goes into overdrive. And when I lose sight of that purpose, everything is more work. I grumble and complain like the Israelites in the desert, and there's a dullness to my experiences. Celebrating the Mass at the beginning of every week is for me to become conscious again, to become conscious of this purpose to my life and remain conscious of that purpose all week long. Mass is for me this sort of consciousness-raising experience. I'm here to tell you, it makes it so nice to get up in the morning, to know that I have something to do that's not just for me. If the church is doing its job, and if you and I get this sense of purpose, I know at least one book you don't have to go out and buy.